Interest rates jump over 6% for the first time since 2008. Let's talk about that and more in this week's segment of Market Watch. Hi everyone, Joshua Barks here, Associate Broker with Keller Williams Realty Boise and Team Lead of the Barks & Co. Real Estate Team. Thank you for tuning in to this week's segment of Market Watch. If you're new to the channel, we talk about the Boise area housing market on a week-over-week basis, and then once a month we go into a deep dive. Last week was our deep dive video into the entire month of August, talking about our predictions for the rest of the year and what have you. That one has a lot of great information in there. The link to that's going to be in the description below. If you would like these reports emailed to you, I put together essentially a newsletter on a weekly basis with these numbers and a full write-up, and that's delivered by email on Fridays or Saturdays. The link to that is also in the description below if you want to sign up for that. Totally free, no obligations there. And this week, let's really just get into it. First off, interest rates. Interest rates rose and are actually over 6%, so 6.02%. For the 30-year fixed is the national average, according to Freddie Mac, and that's the first time the national average has been over 6% since 2008. So that is pretty incredible. We're going to see that likely affect demand even further and potentially start to trickle into prices, especially in for first timers and things like that, because that's really going to make a huge difference to their payments, monthly payments, and bottom line there. Now, when we're talking about inventory and things like that, we have inventory flattening pretty much. Over the past couple weeks, it's been on a steady decline. However, this week we saw an increase for the first time in several weeks, and the number of new listings coming to market in the last 7 days is actually the most it's been since July. So that could be a signal that we're headed into or officially in the fall market. Now, we have 1,620 available homes for sale in Ada County for existing, not counting new construction homes, and 194 new listings came to market in the last 7 days. Last week, we only had 149 new listings come to market, but we still had, 1,600 available homes. The number of pending sales is also up week over week. So we have 585 homes pending overall right now. Last week, we only had 552. And the week over week number is also up with 171 buyers purchasing homes in the last 7 days. And 136 is what we had the week prior. So that 171 homes going under contract and the 585 is higher than we've seen also since July. So that's pretty incredible there. When we're looking at the number of homes sold, home sales are staying pretty flat. We had 129 homes close in the last 7 days. Last week we had 108 homes close. So overall, we're seeing inventory come up a little bit, but I would say pretty much staying flat, and demand potentially coming up a bit. It's too soon to see if this is a trend, but it does look like, based on these numbers, that we're headed into our fall selling season. Now, one thing I mentioned last week that I want to bring up again, maybe clarify a little bit as well, is that we're headed into an election year. And typically during an election cycle, we see our housing market here locally go on pause. So mini slowdown, but really it's a pause because it picks back up after the election, generally speaking, because people don't like making big life decisions like buying a home or making a move when they're uncertain of what's going to happen politically. That's just what we generally see. Now, typically, that's only the case for presidential elections because those are the main ones that the nation cares about, or even just our local market in general. Our presidential election, that's what people focus on. However, and so this year's only a midterm cycle, so it could be different. We might not see as much of a pause that we would see in an election season, a presidential election year. My goodness. I want to bring up, though, that because politics have been so tumultuous over the past couple of years, and I feel like there's a lot going on that's surrounding these midterms specifically, at least from what I've noticed through my lifetime. And that could lead to this year being another kind of distraction year in the housing market as people focus on politics for the next couple of months. Now, I personally think that we are going to see, inventory potentially come up a little bit, remain fairly flat. Demand is probably going to come up a little bit, but with rising interest rates, that's going to, knock several people out of the market. So it'll be really important to have options as a buyer. And speaking of options, there are ways as a buyer, this is a fantastic time in a couple of ways. You're not going to be competing against other people, probably, at least not for every listing. And you might be able to get the house for less than what the seller is asking for, as well as get the seller to pay for closing costs. In addition to closing costs, the seller might offer to pay, discount points for the mortgage so that your interest rate can actually be lower because you're paying a fee up front for those. So the seller could offer a concession for that. The seller may also, you can ask for repairs again. The past couple of years, you haven't been able to do that really. But now, sellers are being more reasonable when it comes to repair items and things like that. And you can get credit or have those specific things repaired. So, it depends on the listing, of course, and it depends on whether or not you're competing and all of the other stuff. But by and large, it's a great time to be a buyer because it's a lot more fair. And then if interest rates are the thing that's holding you back, of course, that national average being over 6% is, higher than what we've seen since 2008, but it doesn't mean that your interest rate's going to be 6%. So you'll want to talk with a lender specifically to find out what rates that they offer, the fees and things like that, and actually go through at least a pre-qualification, better yet, a pre-approval if you're actually thinking of really considering making a move. So the rate that you would get is probably lower, especially if you have, good credit, good percent down, what have you, and things like that. But there are options. There's ways to be creative in any market. On the seller side, because we have, so many listings available compared to the past couple of years. In fact, it's basically 3 times as much available homes as what we have pending, with 1,600 available, 500 pending. Well, I guess it's almost 600 pending, but so that's 1 out of 3 are being bought by buyers, basically, is kind of what that looks like. And so with that means that your house has to stand out. So pricing is going to be super important. Your condition of the house is going to be super important. And of course, marketing is going to be super important. So all of those things are going to come into much greater effect than what we've seen over the past couple of years. And that's one of the reasons why we're seeing average days on market go up, because we are still seeing so many listings start way too high in price and end up reducing and reducing and reducing until they finally find a buyer or don't even sell at all. Over the past week, like I said, we had 194 new listings come to market. 13 of those went pending. So out of almost 200, less than 1% went pending in the past week. So that's really showing what's going on out there. When you're thinking about buying or selling, now, if you're thinking ahead into the future, talk about next spring or potentially even just after the holidays, early next year, now is actually still a good time to meet with a real estate professional that you trust. I'd always be honored to be interviewed, but the real estate professional that you trust. And the reason now is a good time is because you can actually get things lined up so that when you are ready, when the time is right for you, you can actually just make it happen because you've already lined everything up. Now, on the seller side, that's super awesome because if you have, maybe some repairs or things to get underway in order to get your house ready for market, you can enjoy having those things repaired and enjoy, the fresh paint or what have you through the holiday season. Because right now you're competing against fewer people to get contractors. And it's been super hard to get contractors over the past couple of years. And the fall, winter season is the time when most of them have more time available than what they generally have. in the spring and summer. So next spring, if you're waiting to get, everything underway and you have stuff to do, that might put you in crunch time or delay when we can put your house on the market. Because we need to get those contractors in there to get that ready. Doesn't mean we can't make it happen quickly, because we still can. I've seen miracles before. I've even worked some of those miracles to make them happen, but it's nicer for everyone, I think, if we just plan ahead, if we're able to. Now, on the buyer side, the reason it's crucial to meet with somebody early, if you're thinking about buying a home, is mainly because of the pre-approval process. I've had people before where, they're not ready yet, so they don't want to do anything, they don't want to get started, and then the home of their dreams comes on the market and they're like, we want this one, we're ready right now. And we go to try to get them pre-approved and work through that process, and they're not able to. They have, something to overcome, or maybe it's slightly outside their budget, or what have you. Very many factors involved in that. But ultimately, they miss out on this house that if they had met with a lender maybe a couple months, even a couple months before that, they could have gotten those things taken care of or been better prepared in order to make an offer on that house when it came up. So that's why I say meet with somebody early if you're thinking about buying or selling. But I'll get off my soapbox with that. Prices overall, we're likely going to continue to see prices appreciate, but at a very, very small pace. So far this year, we have seen appreciation in the average sales price has increased, and the median sales price has also increased. And we're likely going to continue to see that, even though we have interest rates coming up and demand flattening, but inventory is also flattening. So I think we're probably going to see it stay fairly stable through the rest of the year. Now, when I say appreciating, I don't mean anything like what we've seen over the past couple of years, because the frenzy's over and has been over for several months now. And if you compare what's happening right now with the price appreciation to the past couple of years, you're going to be like, well, it's basically not appreciating at all. But if you look prior to that, prior to the pandemic, really, it's still a strong seller's market. We're seeing less than 3 months supply on the market, which means that it's considered seller's market from economists. And then between 4 and 6 months is when we start to see a balanced market. We're headed toward a balanced market, because earlier this year we were at 1 month supply and less than a month. So we're finally starting to see it head toward more balanced, which is why, again, I'm saying it's starting to get more fair for buyers than it has been over the past couple of years. But it's not showing signs of a crash, like prices dramatically dropping by and large. Now, your individual home value may be less now than what we saw previously this year, potentially, because individual homes and individual properties are affected differently. This is an overall, prices are going up, and days on market is also going up. So it's a much nicer market to be in right now, when you have a lot more fairness, and as a buyer, a lot more choices. And then if you're a seller that's also a buyer, it's a great time, because now, again, you have those choices that we didn't have over the past couple of years, where, I could sell my house, but then where would I go? Now we have options to figure out where you could go, because we have more available. That's really what I have this week. I'm starting to get off into rambling territory, so I will cut it here. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and we will see you next week for Market Watch. It's finally starting to cool down out there, so I'm excited about that. And be sure to give us a like and a subscribe if you want me to keep doing these, and also leave comments about things that you want me to cover in the future, or things that you're confused about, because I'm always happy to help give more information, because these videos are just a resource for you. I'm always looking at these numbers regardless of doing these videos, so this is really for you. I want to make sure that it's impactful. That's what I have. I hope everyone has a good weekend, and we will see you next week.